What if I told you I've made an alcohol stove that is self-feeding? So every time I take the stove out, there's no need to refuel it. It's all self-contained in the pot that I keep to boil my water and cook my food. So this is a little homemade project, self-feeding stove, really easy to make. What you're going to need for this little project is a lid off a jar. You're going to line that with stove rope. You need a bird feeder, which is going to be the stand, and a container that is waterproof, nice secure lid for the fuel. Once you have those components, all that sits inside your cooking cup. So that's all the components you're going to need. You might even have some of them lying about. So I'm going to dig mine out and we'll have a look. Everything I have fits into my cooking cup. Also have a little bag of food and some hot drinks, so I can have a nice cup of tea right now. And hopefully I brought with me some water for that cup of tea. Now, if you are watching this and wondering why doesn't he just use, say, a Trangia stove, I'm going to suggest type in the stove you want to watch into the YouTube search box. It's going to be so much easier than watching something you don't want to, just to complain that it's not the stove you want or use. It's just a little homemade make. Another comment I'll probably get is why I don't use a wood stove, a folding wood stove. Again, if you want to watch a folding wood stove, a different alcohol stove, gas stoves, type it into the YouTube search box. You can find what you want to watch rather than something you don't. However, if you are interested in learning how to make your own self-feeding alcohol stove, this is pretty good. Let's have a look at this. I'm using 500mm stainless steel glacier with folding butterfly handles, so it's great for a small amount of trail food if that's where you want to go. Little homemade lid there. Inside I've just bagged up the fuel. It's not the best fuel container, but it's a good proof of concept, and here it is. I'm using this pink liquid, which I can fill to the top, half fill. It's extremely fuel efficient. Here's how it works. Once you have your pot that fits inside your cooking vessel, fill it full of cooking alcohol of choice, in this case methylated spirits, and inside is my stove rope and my bird feeder pot stand, and I can just pour off the excess and light that. That is ready to go. That's primed, that's fueled. Put the lid back on that so I don't knock it over. Put that to one side. Put my pot onto my stove. Get some water in for a quick cup of tea. Now it's a 500mm pot, so I'm going to put half in, 250mm. And there's also potential here to have a little homemade windscreen with a tin can around it. Just light it. There's no time to wait either. If all you want to do is a quick brew, no bloom time. As soon as it's lit, it's going. It also helps having a windscreen around that. I just need to dig one out. I'll have to check to see if I do have a windscreen. I do. So handles facing towards me. Now windscreen will actually help boil a lot quicker than just putting the lid on. We've done that experiment. The windscreen is what's going to accelerate a faster boil. The lid will also help, apparently. It boils relatively quick as well. Some brew making kit here, just tea bags, some sweetener. Let's see if I bought a spoon this time to stir with, and I have. Saves taking my glasses off and using the handle, but I've stirred with a lot worse than that. Okay, it's only going to take as long as it will with any other liquid alcohol stove. I've timed this somewhere around maybe 2-3 minutes. When it's damp like this or colder, those times are going to change. Now, I was saying before about why don't I use a 𝒉𝒐𝒗𝒆 stove. Slow bloom time when you light it. There are tricks and tips to light these things quicker, which I've shown on the channel with a 𝒉𝒗𝒆 stove. So every time I put my stove away, it dips itself into the pot with the liquid alcohol in. So next time I pull it out, it's already pre-fueled. For an extended boil, if you're doing food, I would say this isn't probably for you. And yeah, a 𝒉𝒗𝒆 stove has a longer burn time. But if all you're doing is a freeze-dried meal where you're just adding hot water, you only want a stove that is so fuel efficient, it's only going to boil the right amount of fuel just for one boil. So you're going to have to play about with the size of lid that you have with the stove rope in. And I'll show you the actual stove once this is boiled. There's my rolling boil. So I could leave this a little longer if I want to prolong the actual boil of this, maybe to sterilise some water for 2-3 minutes. I'm sure that'll burn another 3 minutes. Of course, if I'm cooking, I might just refuel it. Simple as that. I'll show you how we're going to refuel it. So in actuality, it has carried on burning there for a good few minutes after. And get a tea bag and sweeten it up. And before the sugar police jump in the comments, too bad, too bad. Couple of sugars, and I'm good for a brew. That flame is just dying down now. Let's get my sugar back in here. Let's blow that out. Start packing up. Now, so I can drink my brew a little quicker, just going to put a splash of cold water into that because it is piping hot and it is raining. The cameras and mics aren't waterproof, so how do I refuel it for the next burn? I'll show you now. It's as simple as packing it away. And once you packed it away, the next time you want to come to use it, it'll be pre-fueled. But first, let's have a look at the stove itself. And now it's raining and the camera's not waterproof. Gonna have to get some cover. I'll duck under this tree a minute and hope the electrics don't get wet. A bird feeder or squirrel feeder that you have your nuts in. It's the metal off that. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. The first part is a bird feeder come squirrel nut feeder, and I've cut it to 2 gaps in length of my finger. You can see it's just about half a finger to this second knuckle. It doesn't have to be exact. And at the bottom I've cut these little notches here which support a lid off a jar with stove rope in. I'm a bit missing from the inside there, but I will find some extra stove rope, and that just drops in, and those little cutouts there hold it in place, stop it falling out. Now when I'm ready to pack up, like I will be in a minute, I open up my fuel and put my stove back in. It immediately obviously soaks that stove rope, give it a swish about. I can put as much or as little fuel in as I want, and next time I come to use it, obviously it's all wet up, ready to go. It's as simple as that. So I can actually fire this up instantly, unlike a lot of other alcohol stoves that need a certain bloom time. That is one nice cup of tea there. So that is the first advantage. Obviously the whole idea of it, that it was self-feeding. I only have to get the stove out and I don't need to fuel it. The third advantage is it's incredibly fuel efficient. There is only enough fuel on that stove rope for one boil, plus maybe a minute or two. And that minute or two will vary, like I said, depending on the temperature, climatic changes, such as this damp weather, or whether it's cold or hot where you live. It all fits inside the cup that I'm going to cook or boil water. So it's compact. I don't need to carry a separate fuel bottle and stove other than inside this pot. And I've left my tea bag in, makes it a bit stronger. It's a very, very simple make. And that is going to be hot for some time. Warm my hands on it. Play about with the size of lid with the stove rope in. Play about with the thickness of the stove rope. I think mine is 4mm, if you need to know. And that, of course, will depend on the size of the lid from a jar that your stove rope is lining. The biggest challenge was finding the fuel pot to put the self-feeding stove in the first place. I've just got a little plastic jar that needs improving because I don't believe it is overly watertight. So I'm on the lookout for a little jar that will fit inside this other than that plastic jar, because I think that will leak it. So that is a proof of concept. Like I said, the prototype now is tweaking it, like I said, a better fuel pot. The stove itself I'm happy with. I'm going to get a tin can, like a beer or a soda has been in, and make myself a smaller windshield, so that will fit in here as well. And I think that will actually fit inside the bird feeder. So this project isn't over, and doesn't have to be over for you. You can improve on it or build it just as I have. And of course, if you have a preference for a wood stove, a gas stove, transient stove, just type it into the search box and have a go at watching something you do want to watch, rather than watching something like this, a little homemade make that probably won't interest you, but it'll interest somebody, even if it's not you. Until next time, take care of yourself. I'll see you out there. Cheers. Happy trails.